All right, nerds, we are back for day 17 of the Fermented Friends Advent Calendar. And as you can see, we have guests. We have Justin, who you've all seen before. And from Ribstone Creek, as we've been endlessly floating on social media, we have Aaron. Say hi, everybody.
Hello, how's it going?
Hey, folks, how are we?
Good. All right. Oh, we already have 7 viewers, so that's weird. Okay, good. People are watching. Everybody say hi again. Let us know what you're drinking, chat. Hopefully it's Ribstone Creek beer.
Shameless plug already. Shameless plug.
So the beer we are drinking today, and a big reason we have Aaron on, is our selection today from Dylan is the Ribstone Creek Imperial Dark Ale. I got weird light coming on too, probably from my blinds. There we go. This guy comes in at a hefty 8.5%, 473 milliliter can. 1 pint for like the 2 Americans that watch this channel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the things I would comment on this, I do like it. You know, when you look at it just from the start, like just a clean logo, clean writing, but then there's some small writing, fine print, if you would, right? Left-hand side, strong beer. Top side, very small batch, right? So I think there's a nice part, but also the can, like just clear, not clear, but just there's no other wrapping, nothing else, just the logo on that. And Aaron, I'd be curious about kind of maybe, you know, you can talk a little bit about maybe some of the design decisions or kind of what goes into this, and is this kind of what we typically expect from Ribstone Creek?
So no, to answer your question. So we do have our full run of product lines that are a lot more design and labeling effort goes into them. And those are the beers that we'll brew regularly throughout the year, do a couple batches of them if it is a seasonal kind of thing. So those you get a little bit more bottom to top of the can kind of coverage on the label. But actually just this past spring, we've launched a program called our Very Small Batch Series, which this is one of the ones that do fall into that. Mm-hmm. So with the Very Small Batch Series, we literally just do up a very small batch brew of beers, and we just can up the I think we usually get around roughly 80 flats of those, and then we send them out to the market, and then once those are gone, they're done. So that's why it kind of looks it is a little bit clean, a little bit more precise, but they're literally just something that's more so to move through our brewery, maybe some local accounts near around our brewery, and then also kind of like the more high profile accounts throughout the province that are able to get their hands on it. So like I said, they are I really want to emphasize like the exclusivity and kind of the small batch nature of these brews, which this falls in part of.
Yeah, I love that idea. And maybe, you know, you talk about that probably a little bit in here, but that idea of I'm gonna use the word like mitigated costs. Right? Mm-hmm. But the safety of like, you know, this can, sure, look, you could slap another label on it and it's another small batch. Right?
Exactly.
So there is you know, less investment in that, because if something doesn't obviously go well, it works great. I think that's fantastic. I really like that idea. What's the decisioning around like that idea of like small batch? What does that mean for you as a company and an organization and brew house? And like, is it a little bit of freedom, a little bit of less risk versus reward, or how do those things work?
It's all those above. Sorry, excuse me. It's essentially with our very small batch, it gives us the opportunity to play around, kind of fine tune some ideas, almost even test the market a little bit more, if you will. So it's stuff that our brew team is kind of interested. We do these things we call Edgerton exclusives. So we'll do pilot brews, 50-liter keg, throw it on at the tap room, pour through that, and then that's generally what the Edgerton exclusive is. For those, I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, Edgerton is where we actually brew our beer out of. And then, so sometimes we'll find an Edgerton exclusive that will sell out a lot quicker than others. And at that time, we'll sometimes move it into the very small batch system to kind of just, that's a way so we can get it outside of our very micro local area, and kind of get it more out throughout the rest of the province and kind of get a little bit more feedback from there.
Yeah. So go ahead. So how much is a small batch? And have any of your seasonals or permanents now, were they small batch at any point?
So our small batches are usually around 10 to 15 hectoliters.
Okay.
That's what we end up doing for those. To answer your question about any of our full-time SKUs, I'd say not yet, as we just had launched this program in like I said, in the spring. So still kind of collecting the feedback. We haven't moved any of them into our full run products.
Yeah.
But again, it would definitely have that flexibility. And honestly, there's a little bit of that goal. If we find something that really, really sticks, then we'll move it on to the bigger system.
Now, Edgerton, I had to look it up. So, and I've been all over Alberta and I didn't know where it is. So it's near Wainwright.
Yeah.
It's 400-ish people, or according to your website, 400 plus, depending who's in town.
Yeah, exactly. Depends who's working at the brewery that day, or if they're out for deliveries or not.
So why Edgerton? Were you from there? Did you live in Wainwright and that's just cheap real estate, or?
Well, first of all, I'll say you don't have to feel bad about not knowing where Edgerton is. We go to all these different beer shows across the province, and that's the number one question that people come up to us and say, like, where the hell's Edgerton? Because it is pretty small little town out in East Central Alberta there. But yeah, so super small town, like you mentioned. Why Edgerton? That's because that's where our founders were born and raised, and where they call home. So the kind of story goes behind it is that there's 4 guys, like I mentioned, locals, that were drinking beer in their garage at the Edgerton Sports Days, which is generally, minus this year, a yearly event that happens out in Edgerton. And they were drinking beer in their garage, as a lot of people do out there, and they realized that, you know what, we grow all this amazing barley out in this neck of the woods. We also drink a lot of beer out in this neck of the woods. Wouldn't it be kind of great to combine these two passions of our local environment and try and bring a little bit more, add something to the economy of Edgerton? So essentially that's what they set out to do. They quickly realized, you know what, starting up a brewery is quite a large task. It takes a lot of know-how as well as a lot of resources to make that happen.
Yeah.
So they went out to the local community, kind of shared their idea with the local town and surrounding areas. And from there, they were able to secure about 80 local investors to kind of put their money forward and into this project. So that's really amazing for us, because in a town of 400 people, to have about 80 people from the surrounding area to put in their hard-earned money to try and get this project off the ground, it means so much. So that happened almost 10 years ago, actually. A little bit over 10 years, the process all started at. And so to this day, we're still community owned and operated, and operating out in Edgerton, Alberta. So it's something that we're definitely proud of, to be brewing our beer out there. It drives a little bit more traction in through to, definitely drives in some more traction in through the town. And it's a place that we're really proud to call home. Good.
So Gabriel, who's also in the Advent Calendar, one of the fermented nerds in it, he's asking, how do hectoliters translate into number of cans? So how many liters in a hectoliter?
Yeah, so 100 liters are in a hectoliter.
Okay.
So from there, you can kind of do the math.
Yes.
But like I said, I'll just to have a very rough generalization. We get about 80 flats of beer with 24 cans in a flat, with a couple of kegs that we'll pour through the tap room on top of that when we do a very small batch.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Let's get this beer and then we can talk while we're having some.
Sure.
Okay, so as we pour this, I do have a question.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a dark ale and like a stout or a porter? Or is this more like a Cascadian style where it's a bit hoppier or something?
No, definitely not Cascadian. So that's a really good question. So this was a brew that our head brewer was kind of working on a little bit of a recipe, and it was a little bit of a passion project experiment that he was kind of working on. So we were aging this for about 5 months in our tanks. So we didn't really know what was going to come out of it. But we did know we wanted that imperial kind of dark, higher ABV style beer. So that's definitely what you can kind of expect, a little bit more of that winter warmer style. However, when we were going through the process, we're doing some samples, we realized, you know what, it's definitely not as roasty as a stout, but it's not as like sweet as a porter generally is. Kind of like falls in that weird middle ground of the two of them. So when we were kind of discussing it, we're like, what should we call it? Is it a porter? No, not really. Is it a stout? No, not really. It is Imperial for sure. So we landed on Imperial Dark Ale. Basically as named it for what it was.
No, that's 100%. I was just curious, because I mean, it comes out dark, super dark, pretty thin head on it, which is like fairly like porter stouty.
Yeah. Kaylee asks a great question. Kaylee says, "Ask Aaron, what's the right type of glass for a dark ale?"
I was going to ask that.
Anyone that will allow you to drink it, really. You know what? That's a good question. Generally, one for me, I probably won't have the most fermented nerd answer for this, but I just like one that really kind of opens it up to kind of release some of the aromas that are hidden in it. So when you swirl it around, you can kind of open that up a little bit more and experience the nose factor as well. But I wish our brewmaster could definitely tell you that, but I must admit that my limited knowledge in that.
I googled it. What's the best glass for a dark ale? And usually, like, automatically Google's translating that into stouts or porters.
Yeah.
So I just picked up this. I'm trying to cover their logo because it's not yours.
That's okay. I'll forgive you.
And I was actually going to go run down to Dylan's and try and get a glass from him because he has your glasses. I knew I wouldn't have time, so because I would just get stopped and chat and lose time. But it's dark. So you roast the malts, obviously. So
and like the biggest thing is just like we used a whole bunch of malt in this beer, and then we aged it for 9 months to really allow those malts to really develop and really shine through. So you get a lot of dark cocoa, smoked wood kind of comes through as well, and then that roasted espresso comes through at the end too. Definitely, you get a little bit of a booziness to it. But it's something that I don't find too overwhelming kind of thing. Okay. So
good.
And again, you had said it was an 8.5, right? Yeah, 8.5 on the alcohol. Yeah.
You can smell like it's the sweetness we're smelling. Like booze can kind of give that off a little bit. That like very strong, like ethanol's the wrong word because it's almost insulted, but ethanol-y sweetness.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and then you definitely get like the wood. And a lot of like espresso, super strong coffee. I think we'll just get to drinking this and it'll be good no matter what, I'm sure.
And while you guys are giving it a sample, I just wanted to again thank Dylan at the Burger Bar for getting that into the Advent calendar and giving us this opportunity. He's been a great supporter of ours, one of the supporters of ours throughout all of Lethbridge. That is always eager to work with us and would bring us in for a couple different events and. Especially with the recent rules, make sure that you guys support them during this time, and especially because you can add some Ribstone Creek to your order.
Yes. So he has this beer in his fridge.
He sold it out of that one, unfortunately.
Oh, did he run out now? Okay.
Yeah, but he does
3 or 4 cans left, but maybe sold out.
Yeah, he's got our lager, Old Man Winter Porter. And our pink guava lager, which was another one of our very small batches that we did as well.
I think he sold out of that one too. I think he has low Kaizen that he picked up from Andrew Hilton, and he had some of your big bottles of your the Imperial version of your Old Man
Winter. Yeah, those are rare to come by. So if you are able to get your hands on one of those, I definitely recommend it.
He picked up a few. It's very, very good. Old Man Winter Porter is kind of what got me onto you guys. I bought it at Two Guys, I think, here in town, the pizza place.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is a good. It was it's wintertime, so I was like, this is a good beer. And then I started noticing your beer everywhere. Your Ribstone Creek Lager is actually his #1 selling beer at Dylan's.
And also, I think it does pretty well at Two Guys too. If I remember.
But it's a good like gateway in a way, right? So people like, you got Canadian, you got Budweiser, because people go in those places, ask for it, and they're like, no, but I have this beer, try this beer.
Well,
Sorry,
it's
which
funny. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, first I'd say, if for some reason you're not able to get out to Dylan's, or sure, look at He's Sold Out or anywhere else, you can, of course, order online, right,
Mm-hmm.
for Ribstone and have it delivered to your house, right? That's one of the ways that you're supporting local, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Again, with the recent COVID impact on the economy, we did launch an online delivery program.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we're not delivering down to Lethbridge, but we are doing the Calgary and Edmonton and Wainwright areas,
Yeah.
doing it that way. But we're also, if there's anyone across Canada tuning in to this, we are available on Craft Tap. So that's it's a website online where they can order in our product through that as well.
Nice.
Tap. Cool. We have 13 people watching. That's pretty good. That's very good. On Facebook, 11 on YouTube.
I wanted to just touch to what you were saying earlier about our lager and our Old Man Winter, because I think that's a really good representation of our brewery. So when we first started up brewing, like I said, 10 years ago, craft beer in Alberta was not much of it was just a little twinkle in the eye of the province, I guess you could say at that point. So when we started brewing in East Central Alberta, that was our main goal, was to brew a beer that really appealed to the local area. So like you mentioned, they were drinking their light lagers, their pale lagers, their Molson Canadians or Budweisers and what have you. So we wanted to come out with a beer that was also light, easy drinking, very clean and crisp, and didn't always have that super hoppy characteristic that a lot of people at that time associated with craft beer, which doesn't necessarily need to be the case. So that's why we came out with the lager. And I think that actually really kind of showcases something that we're really proud of, is appealing to our local area first and foremost. A lot of craft breweries, when they come out with a pale ale, IPA, and a brown or something, because those ales are a little easier and quicker to brew, where lagers are harder to pull off as they take more time. So with us, lager coming first out of our first beer coming out of the line, that was our whole goal, was to try and appeal to that crowd. On the flip side, the Old Man Winter Porter was one that really put us on the map for the craft beer fanatics out there. So it was our first Canadian Brewing Award that we won probably about 5 years ago. Silver medal in the porters category. And yeah, it's definitely one of our more critically acclaimed beers, and one that's got its most passionate diehard fan base.
That's fantastic.
So you just answered almost every single question I had for you.
Well, I apologize.
Well, folks, that's a show. Thanks for showing up. Good night.
Yeah, see, no, that's awesome, because those are all the questions I had. What was your most popular beer? What's one that kind of put you on the map? I did notice, looking in your story, you've had a few beers that have won. You've had more than one beer win awards. Did Abbey Lane win awards?
Yeah, actually, most recently in the awards that happened just in September at the Canadian Brewing Awards, Abbey Lane won the gold medal in the Sessions Ale category.
Okay.
Which is awesome. Normally, when people think of session ale, they generally think of like a lower alcohol IPA kind of thing, like an ISA.
Yeah.
Where I think our beer really shines out. So it's a dark beer. It's meant to be a traditional British pub beer. So it's got those kind of dark coffee, toasted notes, a little nuttiness to it. Very dark in body, just as dark as the beer you're drinking almost. But it's very light in body. It's only 3.6% in alcohol. So very light. So without the heavy body, lighter alcohol, it doesn't really catch up to you too quickly, much like a British pub beer was kind of designed to do. Yeah. So it's very unique, very well executed. Our brew team does an amazing job with all our beers, but that one I think just really shines out in that low ABV sessions ale category, because I think a lot of them end up being a lower alcohol, like ISA kind of thing. And this is definitely something unique, and it's won us 2 gold medals at the Canadian Brewing Awards, that beer itself.
That's fantastic.
Dan, who runs Western Canadian Reviewer on YouTube, so check him out. It's a good channel. He's doing Advent Calendar as well. Anyways, he says Old Man Winter has been a great beer that a lot of people talk about for sure. So that's cool. He's in Calgary.
Okay.
So if people know you in Calgary, that's a flooded market. an absolute flooded market.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool that even, a tiny town brewery can be found in Calgary and people know about it. So, I mean, once you're award winning, you really start standing out, and all of a sudden people will notice you and want you. Are you in Calgary? Like, are you in Collective, Alberta Beer Exchange, places like that?
Yeah. So like although we're brewed in a small town out in the middle of the prairies, we are available throughout the whole province. So if we're just talking very generally speaking, we're available at the Sobeys and Safeway liquor stores.
Okay.
A bunch of co-ops, the co-op chains carry us, liquor depots and wine and beyonds as well. Those are kind of some of the bigger chains. And then you'll probably be able to find at least one of our styles at most craft beer shops throughout the province as well. So especially, I don't know if you're a little bit more in the Lethbridge area, but like Andrew Hilton is a great spot as well. So kind of those more craft kind of boutique shops that you'll find us throughout the provinces.
Yeah. You were saying there, Aaron, you talked about kind of being in existence now for almost 10 years prior to kind of the microbrewery scene really kicking up. You mentioned that is a flooded market now, right? Like it's a very busy spot. How do you guys kind of stay, I don't want to say relevant, but hey, how do you stay active in that space? Because it kind of really feels like every, walk down the street and it feels like there's another brewery or microbrewery popping up. How do you kind of keep that ground ahead of you? And I guess, do you look for collaborations within those groups or anyone that you work with or kind of coordinate with in those pockets as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like definitely Edmonton and Calgary are definitely growing with all their craft beer, the breweries that are coming out there. I will say, though, what's amazing about it is that this is definitely kind of be probably a tired phrase, but it does hold true a little bit in that the rising tides float all more boats kind of thing. So as more and more of these breweries open up, we're finding that more and more people are becoming aware of them. And they're like, oh, this brewery's opened up in my neighborhood in Calgary. Maybe I'll try a craft beer instead of my traditional macro big brand that I've always drank.
Yep.
And then they enjoy that experience and they say, oh, okay, that's great. I love this local community brewery. What other breweries are out there as well? So then they'll go to the liquor store and they'll say, oh, Ribstone Creek. That's another one that I haven't tried, so I'll give that one a go. So by all these other breweries opening up within the industry, we do find it is kind of in one way or another increasing our exposure as well.
That's fantastic.
Have you found, first a question actually before you get to mine, Dan again asking, what are your favorite collaborations that you've done with other breweries, or have you done collaborations with other breweries?
Yeah, we've definitely done a couple different collaborations, but I'll definitely say the one that really stands out to me, it was one that we did a few years ago, probably close to 4 or 5 years ago at this point, and it was called the Ribstone Creek Hermit that we did in collaboration with Apex Predator out in Edgerton. So it's kind of cool what it all just kind of worked out super well. Like if you kind of try and think geographically on the map, we've kind of got Edmonton that sits in the middle of the province, Edmonton's over here, and then Edgerton's over here kind of thing. Yeah. So we're kind of like both central Alberta, kind of riding both sides of the province. But what we did, which was kind of unheard of in Alberta at that time, was that our generally with a collaboration, brewmasters will get together at one facility and come up with a recipe, brew the beer at that one facility, and then sell that as their collaboration. Where we took a kind of a different approach with this Hermit, where the brewmasters got together, created this recipe, then took that recipe and took it to their respective breweries, and each brewed a batch there. So what was kind of cool about that is the recipe was the exact same. The ingredients were the same, but the biggest changing factors were the water sources as well as the brewery equipment. So what was the result was that a beer that was very similar, they were kind of like siblings, but they weren't identical twins by any means. So you were able to kind of notice the distinct differences between the two styles or the two different products. And I thought that was a really cool collaboration that we did to kind of showcase what the different brewing systems and water can impact the brew.
That's fantastic. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So as we drink this beer, so I've had it out of my fridge for 40 minutes now. It's keeping its body. It's kind of giving you different nuances as you drink it, as it warms up in your hand. That's kind of why I like drinking bigger beers in my hand instead of with a stem, just because like the warmer it gets, it just changes a little bit flavors. The booze definitely came out, but I like that it has that strong kind of coffee espresso bitterness to cut it instead of hot bitterness, right? It's hot. It's a nice malty, thick body. It's really good. We never get to review your beer. We just started drinking it, so I figured I should talk about your beer just for a second. So in Edgerton, 400 people. There's like the one community restaurant pub, I assume, and then you guys, right?
Yeah. So it's the big one would probably be the hotel bar, the Oasis. So it's called the Edgerton Oasis, and it's what you probably see at most small town, rural Alberta, throughout the prairies, where they have the hotel with a couple rooms upstairs and then the bar downstairs. So that's actually just down the back alley of us, and that's.
I assume they carry your beer, of course. It just makes sense. So such a small community. I assume there'll be because you are a craft brewery. You're close to Wainwright. Do you get a lot of traffic from there? Do you get military traffic? Or does Wainwright have breweries as well?
No, we're one of the few ones in East Central Alberta there. I mean, like Lloydminster, St. Paul, Cold Lake all have breweries up that way. But other than that, it's we're the ones, us with those other ones in that area, we're kind of representing. So it's definitely not overflowing yet. Yeah. But we're all proud to kind of represent East Central together.
Okay, good. And I assume you're like, what I'm trying to get at is it tough having essentially two are you both a gathering place? I assume you have a tap room. Mm-hmm. So with two gathering places, is it different crowds, different parts of the community? Yeah,
they are different crowds. There's no Ubers in Edgerton, so most people. They're driving out there, and they obviously you got to be responsible when you're driving. So we're kind of more of a tourist destination where you'll drive out, maybe pick up some products for the weekend, fill up some growlers, have a pint, maybe a quick bite to eat. But we're not really servicing that sit down and put in a shift all night kind of crowd. Mm-hmm. So that's where the Oasis Hotel has a great menu, and they're kind of more of that restaurant dine-in experience where we're more of a tasting tap room, have some pints, hold a couple events throughout the year, stick around for a couple hours, but not really that late night crowd or like the later night crowd or dine-in experience.
I have to assume, I read your website, so I think I know this, but I assume the town was pretty receptive to what would be for them a fairly big industry or fairly big company moving into town, even just opening, especially at that time. So 10 years ago, how many breweries would there have been in Alberta? Like craft breweries, 6 or 7, 8?
Yeah, roughly. I always kind of use this as a kind of a referencing point, but I believe our liquor license was number 12 for the province of Alberta. So,
wow.
So some had come and gone, and some were still open at that time, but we're the 12th brewery license that they had issued up until that point.
Who would have been around? Alley Cat and Wild Rose, Big Rock.
Canmore Brewing.
Canmore Brewing, yeah.
Yeah.
Canmore, that's interesting. Good to know.
Yeah. So, those are kind of
players, the bigger players in the community, and then you guys.
Yeah, 4 big players for sure.
Yeah. And then I guess the leading to that question again, obviously you talked about the funding right back almost 10 years ago to make that happen, right? 80 people, you sort of say, population of 500, right? So you have 20% funding rate there. Community, I assume, is continued behind it, right? You continue to see that support. This feels like it's homegrown kind of everyone. That's if you're walking in the house and it's not your beer, then somebody's getting a bit of a fisticuff or a little bit of a shake about it. What's the kind of deal there? Because I would imagine there's kind of this underdog feel to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that I always kind of like to bring up when someone mentions the growing community support is every December, actually, it was supposed to happen this weekend, but obviously it's not the year for it. But we host an open house right the weekend before Christmas, where we kind of open our doors, bring in some more food, and bring in a bunch of, we always kind of reserve some different unique beer to put on tap outside of our regular core beers that we have there. And just kind of host a community social, spread some cheer before Christmas. So we've been doing that every year since we opened. The first couple of years, everyone would come in, be looking around, not too sure where to go. And you would look around, and 90% of the people, even though we had the different, unique, more crafty options, they were going to the lager and just keeping drinking the lager kind of thing. A couple of years later, you look around at this event and you see a couple more dark beers, a couple more IPAs head out, mixed in, but still majority lager. And then last year when we did it, when we hosted this event, you look out and people are trying to get in line to try the double or the Russian Imperial Stout that we had tapped on the cask, and the lager was probably the least popular one that went out. So over the years, you can really see that not only we've always had the support from the community, but the craft culture has really been growing out there as well, which has been awesome to see.
Nice.
Cool.
The other question I have, and I'm looking at your website here, tell me more about the Prairie Pirate series.
That was my question.
That looks fantastic.
Great.
Yeah, and it's definitely not done. It's a continuous series that we're doing. That's also it kind of goes back to one of your original questions of a collaboration series that we've done. So it is also kind of a unique look at how we approach the collaboration. So the idea is a little bit of marketing, but the premise behind it is that we wanted to partner with local companies or what have you to create a beer that's not necessarily another brewery. So the marketing behind it is that the Prairie Pirate would go to one of these local businesses, steal in an important ingredient, bring it back to our brewery, and then brew this collaboration beer. So we have done some with breweries. So the Prairie Pirate went and stole hops from Last Best one time to create a beer that was a double IPA, which was a little bit more traditional in its style, but in collaboration. But the Prairie Pirate has also gone to Red Shed Malting in just outside of Red Deer there, and stole some malt, and then we ended up producing a big smoked ale. That was another one that we've done. And then another one that we've also done was we went to the local cheesery in Vermilion, just about 45 minutes away from us, and took some of their culture, their yeast cultures, to come back and create a big Goza sour. So those are just kind of it's a collaboration series that we've done where it's just not necessarily two breweries getting together.
That's great.
I love that. Again, small town brewery in middle of nowhere is doing Gozas and Roke beers.
Yeah.
Very nobody makes Roke beers. Very European. It's even there. It's very rare to see them like that smoked kind of beer or a Goza locally anyways, right?
Yeah.
You're seeing more and more as sours get more popular and stuff. So I love that. And then reading about go to the local cheesery to get their lacto, and that's just so interesting and so cool. And it's neat how these small towns still have cheeseries. It's just so old world. Every town having a little tiny town with a brewery, and then they collaborate with the cheesery or this or that, right? So kind of keeping old world traditions alive, which has kind of been, there's always that contention point in the beer industry. Are you following the German beer laws or not, right? So
right.
Kind of cool. Dan, ask another question. Who would you love to collab with now that we're talking about your pirate series, either in Alberta or anywhere, really? Any other brewery?
Well, we'd love to work with, obviously, every single brewery out there. We're not closing doors to anyone. But one that I personally would love to see is to do kind of a collaboration with all the East Central Alberta breweries that are out there. So there's Fourth Meridian in Lloydminster. Like I mentioned, the Cold Lake Brewery. There's a brewery out in St. Paul as well, Lakeland. And I'd love for us to all kind of get together and produce a beer that we can release to the whole province that are saying this is a beer that's brewed by the East Central Alberta breweries that maybe you're not as familiar with as you might be with the Edmonton and Calgary and breweries that a little bit more fill in the headlines kind of thing. So
I like that you're using, we'll say, your heft, your voice, because bigger voice, you've been around for a long time. People know you to help kind of prop up these other little guys who maybe aren't as known and can't get into fridges, can't get on the shelves. That's really like impressive. I find that in the beer industry, like it's not as competitive as you'd think. People are like, the more I meet people within the industry, they're so collaborative and they just want everybody to succeed, right? The more people drink craft beer, the more you'll sell craft beer, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I also think it's a little bit of a when you've been in the trenches, you kind of respect someone else that's been through the trenches as well. So anyone that's in this industry knows what it's like to get through a day-to-day, the day-to-day business of owning and operating a brewery. And it's definitely a fun industry. I don't want to get that wrong, but it does have its stresses and challenges. And everyone who's in the industry respects each other because they all know what we're going through together.
You'll respect the grind, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So Callie asking, what are your favorite food pairings with different styles of beer, especially this one?
Yeah, so the Imperial Dark Ale, it is a heavy beer for sure. So you'd kind of need a little bit more of a heavy meal to kind of match up against it. You wouldn't want a chicken salad, because that just gets right washed out. But definitely around the Christmas time, I can like a nice heavy roast with a beef gravy and some mashed potatoes would probably kind of shine well. Something that needs to be a little bit more rich, a little maybe more fatty, that can really kind of complement the heavy nature of this beer.
Yeah, it definitely reminds me of like a sweater. Do you know what I mean? Like it's cold outside. You want to warm up. It's got niceness to it. You're not sitting on the patio in August like slamming a couple of these back watching the game, right? It's a little bit different. Or if you are, sure, look, I'm not judging you. You do you. You're right. Like, but it definitely feels like a winter sitting beer.
Yeah, big time.
I'm definitely gonna have one of these, or maybe one of your old man Imperial Mans for Christmas. So
yeah, that'd be a great one.
Good breakfast beer. So awesome. We've been going. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just also going to mention just a little bit of another plug as we were kind of talking about the Christmas season and the open house that we were chatting about. If anyone is in the Edgerton area or near Wainwright, we are still open for retail sales, and we had been planning to host our open house this weekend, but when not being able to do so, we still have all this beer that we brewed for it. So we've got 3 new Edgerton exclusives that are available only at the tap room this weekend that you can come out for a fill your growlers. And then on top of that, we also, this Imperial Old Man Winter Porter, we stumbled across a couple of cases that we did back in 2018. So it's been 2 years aging. And we're going to be doing a Ribstone Reserve release on December 23rd, where people can come out and purchase one of those if they are interested.
I seen on Twitter that somebody had purchased a keg, a 50-liter keg from you guys to have over the holidays. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So what are your Edgerton releases this week, this upcoming then that you're mentioning?
Yeah. So we've got so we recently brought on a new assistant brewer, Bobby. And this is his first crack at being involved with an Edgerton exclusive. So he did a black IPA for us.
Nice.
That we're going to be tapping. And then we've also got a big West Coast style juicy IPA as well that we'll have. Yeah. And then the third one, we're still kind of hammering it out to see if it'll be ready in time. So I don't want to overly promote it if we won't be able to tap it. So.
Any other beers coming out we should know about? Any other new seasonals or new anything you're allowed to talk about?
Nothing that we're gonna talk about in too much detail, but I'll say that our very small batch series, we've been blown away with the reception and how well it's done. So we've got 2021. We've got a big year planned for our very small batch series that we're going to be releasing, a bunch of more unique kind of different one-offs. And then also, I'll also mention that 2021 will be 10 years of brewing for us.
Okay.
So we're got some ideas rolling in our head of some new beers to release and maybe some old favorites as well.
Good. And then
Nice.
I assume a big, if we're allowed, a big 10th anniversary party.
Yeah, but if we're allowed, you can pretty well mark that in your calendars.
All right, Callie, you're watching this, my wife. So road trip.
Yeah. Book a night at the Edgerton Oasis. It's a walking distance from the brewery.
Nice. I'd hope so. Town
Yeah. Everything is.
Anything else you want to talk about or bring up?
Yeah, just before we hang up, I'd just like to say our biggest claim to fame, Ribstone Creek, is that we like to believe that we've got the most breweries per capita in all of Alberta. So for sure, there's a lot of breweries out there, lots to choose from. But if it's coming from a town that's got the most breweries per capita in the whole province, it's something worth trying for sure.
That's awesome. Good way to end.
I'm really hoping that's like a tagline somewhere on a website or a shirt or a can of something, because that's brilliant.
So
Yeah.
lots of local campgrounds?
There's actually lots of great campgrounds out there. If during the summer months, there's Arm Lake. It's like a great little campground that's only about 10 minutes away. And it's got a nice little lake, and it's a great spot for the family and what have you. Edgerton's amazing to visit too during the summer. Beautiful golf course. Of course, our brewery and the lakes around the area. It makes a great summer destination. Depends how lazy you are, or I shouldn't say lazy, but what your priorities are, I should say. There's actually a campground that's right across the street from the brewery. Not as scenic as Arm Lake, but it's a little bit more readily accessible.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Aaron, for coming on with us. It was great. It's hard to get breweries sometimes, especially at this time of year. It's super busy. I get it. Lots of trials and tribulations with COVID that we don't even need to go in detail with. I think everybody understands that. So thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. Everybody go get Ribstone Creek wherever you can find it. In Lethbridge, you can find it at Dillon's Piggyback Patoonery. You can find it at Andrew Hilton. You can find it a few other places for sure. I think Westminster Liquor carries it.
Yeah.
If a new isn't carrying it, I'll make sure he does.
Yeah, appreciate it. New sales rep down there for us.
Yeah, awesome. Do you guys have a sales rep down here?
We've got one. We've got two that cover the whole province. So
Okay, awesome.
They log a lot of miles and cover a lot of ground.
Great. That's good to hear. Cool. Well, thank you, Aaron, for tuning in. Thanks, Justin, for co-hosting.
No worries.
I've done this by myself. It's a lot to do. Tune in every day at 1 o'clock, everyone, for more reviews on Saturday. Speaking of small towns, we have Stronghold Brewing coming in to do a show just like this. They're out of Fort McLeod, so a bit bigger town, 3,000 people, but again, not much of a craft beer atmosphere, and I think they've done a lot of like what you've done, and hopefully we can get more brewers on here. So Aaron, if you know brewers, tell your friends to come on the show. We'd love to have everyone. Hopefully we can have you again too, maybe on your next big release or something. We can have you on talking about it.
Yeah, we'd love to. We want to thank you guys for all your support and featuring us. We love coming out here and chatting about it, and you guys are doing a really good job. So it's people like you guys supporting us that allows us to do what we do, and we really appreciate it.
Good. Yeah. Thanks so much again. Again, find us on all the social medias at Fermented Nerds. Thumbs up, subscribe, tell your friends, hit the bell, all that stuff. With all that said, we've went 45 minutes, the second longest show yet during the Advent Calendar. We went an hour one Saturday, so we'll see what this Saturday is like.
Do I need a filibuster for a couple 20 minutes to take the title, or
let's go?
Just keep going. Yeah, let's just keep talking. We got.
I'm good with second.
Okay,
nice. There you go.
Awesome. Again, thanks everybody for tuning in. This is Fermented Nerds. Thank you, Aaron, from Ribstone Creek in Edgerton, Alberta. Thanks, Justin, from Nintendo Dads. Thanks to all our friends who tune in all the time. All our other YouTube BeerTube guys, Mercy Beers, Beer Native, and Bullman's from the UK. Western Canadian Reviewer from Calgary. Nintendo Dads, Justin. Aaron from Ribstone. I'm Wally. This is Fermented Nerds, and I am out.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.